Good afternoon everyone, it's Caroline from Caroline's Corner here in Flosstube. It is Tuesday the 28th of May and I am here for Flosstube number 36, I reckon. It is my half-term holiday. So we had a bank holiday yesterday in the UK for the Spring Bank holiday. And as usual, it rained. We did go to the coast yesterday to see my parents and did get a bit of sunshine, which was nice, and we were able to walk on the beach and have an ice cream. Not that rain stops any of us having an ice cream when we go to the seaside. A welcome little bit of respite for me from the GCSEs, not so much for my daughter, who is busy revising as we speak because she is currently sitting hers. You can find me around the internet or on Instagram mostly as @Caroline A. Kemp. My Caroline is spelt with a K. And show notes for this episode will be on my blog, which is carolinescorner.blogspot.com. So welcome back if you are a returning viewer, thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to anyone who's new. I mostly talk about cross stitch and what I'm stitching, though I do, when I've actually got enough progress to share some knitting. I've not been knitting as much recently, and when I have some time I do some sewing and quilting and things, which I will also share occasionally. I've actually been doing a fair bit of reading recently just because I've been so tired, but I'll see if I reintroduce books on here or not. So let's crack on with the stitching. I do actually, so let me put my tea down, have a finished object to share. Which is the Sarah's ABC pincushion, which I finished back in February. Yes, February. When this came up on WhipGo. This is by Blackbird Designs. It's from the Thank You Sarah Tobias book, which I know is long out of print. And I bought it when it came out. I decided not to put any trim or anything. This is just quite a simple pillow finish, stuffed with crushed walnut shells. I kept it fairly saggy because I wanted to keep that prim look. I thought it suited it really well. It's stitched on 32 count Lakeside linen. I think it was called Vintage, which is some that I'd had in my stash since the early 2000s when I was in a fabric club. And the silk is a Gloriana Red Rocks. And having visited Red Rocks last summer, I think she got the colour pretty spot on. So yeah, very simply finished. I've just got a bit of neutral batik on the back, and the only ornament is I added a little bulb pin and a couple of vintage buttons just to finish it off. It currently sits propped up against my Nana's old Singer sewing machine from 1936. So quite like the really prim look for this one. So yeah, that's a fully finish, and it's fully finished pretty much within a couple of months of having finished it, which is nothing short of a miracle. So next up, we'll go into what I've been stitching on. We'll start with my focus piece. As you know, if you've been here for any length of time, my focus piece is The Fruits of the Vine Sampler Hussif by With My Needle. This is a teaching piece of Ellen's, and I took the class with her back in 2011 at Fobbles in the Lake District. And this is long overdue being finished. in the class we started with the needle roll, and I stitched a good chunk of the outside of the needle roll. Since the class I stitched the inside of the needle roll. I stitched both sides of the little scissor fob and then made a token start on the sampler for the outside of the hussif. And over the last year, because I have been working on this now for over a year, I have got down to the bottom. This month I finished the last band at the bottom of the sampler. So I got done those birds, did a little bit on the border, and my task for June is just to finish the border, bring it around the bottom and finish the outside of the sampler hussif. I am loving how it's looking, even though stitching all those over one grapes, because they're all tent stitched over one, has been somewhat painful. When I finish the sampler, all I have to do is a pin pillow to go in it, which is a slightly larger version, different version of this bottom section. So I shall do that again in July, and then the stitching will be finished. I wouldn't hold your breath on the finishing, because I do have another class piece that I finished the stitching on a couple of years ago, but from C.A. Wells. It's called the Three-Sided Reticule, if you were watching me back then, and that needs finishing off first before I start in on this one. I'm not sure what the linen was. It came with the kit, and Ellen didn't give details on the class kit. The threads are a mix of Gloriana and Dinky Dye silks, and have been absolute joy to stitch with. So yeah, Ellen always puts her class threads on these little thread organisers shaped like a horn book. So I'll give you a quick close-up of stitching that bottom section there, so you can see what I did. So it's getting quite excited as I get closer to the finish line with that one. Like I say, it's been over a year. I think it was March last year that I picked this up to be my focus piece. This is how long it's taken me to get this far on, because when I picked it up, all I had done was this sort of top, was these grapes at the top, and maybe the top row, top little bit of a scallop bit at the top, and that was it as far as when I picked it up. So I pretty much, it's taken a year it'll have taken over a year to finish the outside of the hussif. But it's all about the progress this year. So that was my focus piece. That gets worked on every month. I earmark a section and I stitch on that till it's complete, and then I'll move on to my other whips for the rest of the month. This year I decided to do whip go. I had 25 or 24 small to medium whips that have all gone on the whip go board. When I last filmed in April, I was working on Summerbird, and I got Summerbird finished. I am in the process of finishing it. It's almost done. I just need to sew some rickrack around the outside, which hopefully won't take too long. It's stitched on 32 count summer khaki linen using the called for overdyed cottons. I think there's a mix of Weeks Dye Works and Gentle Art in it, and a little just another button, company B has been added. It came with the chart. So yeah, so I'd already finished spring and winter. Autumn is also at a similar stage. I just need to sew some rickrack on, so these will be finished. There's, you know, the little pillows stuffed with, again, crushed walnut shell. So stuff these a little firmer than I stuffed my Blackbird design piece, but as I say, I like the prim look on the Blackbird designs. So I'm very pleased to have that one finished. That was my third finish for the year. I finished Autumn Bird, Summer Bird, and Sarah's ABC so far. So my second whip go piece for April was a Mary Cox piece that a friend very kindly gave me because she decided it wasn't the sort of thing she was ever going to stitch. It's the Williamsburg Folk Art sewing box with accessories. So I've been working on the accessories. This was started in 2021, I think, or was it 2020? That one. And I was very pleased with the progress I made. What I wanted, my goal was just to finish the angel. Now I finished all the black stitching on the angel, but there was a load of French knots to go on, and I really wasn't feeling French knots in April. Decided I was too tired, and I decided to leave the French knots till next time. So I got a front for a little needle case finished and made a start on the scissor fob stroke band, really. There you go. So I finished stitching for that one. I'm halfway through the stitching for that, and I just have the cream stitching to finish on that, which is all, it's all French knots. So I decided that could wait till the end. So when I pick this up, if I do whip go again next year, this will get finished. So it's gone from, and when I picked it up, I was about a third of the way through the angel. So I'm really pleased with how much progress I got done. Having got this one to where I can feasibly finish it next year. So it's being stitched. This is 30 count linen, which is just described as hand-dyed linen on the pattern. I think it might be Weeks Dye Works, with 2 shades of Gentle Art thread and 1 Belsoir silk. So very pleased with my progress on those whips. So a finish and one set up to be a finish next year, I take as a win for April's whip go. Right, for whip go in May, the first one that was pulled was the From the Heart needle basket, which if you were watching me last year, you knew I did a fair bit of work on this set, and I have finished the stitching on the pin cushion and the basket fob, and I am working on the basket band. I'm sorry about the glare. This is such an old pattern. It has an actual photo on the front. This was a breast cancer fundraiser from Lois when she was Elegant. She ran the Elegant Stitch shop in Modesto, and was the final piece in the From the Heart set. I've done a needle roll, a sewing pocket, and there was a needle book and a scissor fob that all match. So my goal was to finish the first half of the stitching band. Now I last worked on this in February and had got the top half done, apart from, I'll do it this way up, the over one saying, which just says from the heart. So this time round I finished the row of hearts and I finished off the non-stitch and four-sided stitch around the bottom half. So there is one more half of this to go. Can't see it getting done next year. I'll try and get one half of the band done and then probably the other half the year after, to see how I configure my rotation. Depends how I configure my rotation, of course. But that's being worked. It's 30 count linen, which I think came from Nodden Crafts, and it's Weeks Dye Works Thistle and Carnation with a DMC and Perle cottons in white and pink. My needle keeps for this and the Mary Cox, these are Kelvin Scott thread keeps. And then we get on to the last whip go piece for May, which is what I'm currently working on. This is a Just Nan exclusive called And Many More. This was produced in the early 2000s for the Silver Needle in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She did two pieces. She did a one piece called 20 Flowers to celebrate Silver Needle's 20th anniversary. Nan used to work in the Silver Needle, and then a year or so later she came out with And Many More, which is a needle case. Now I started this one January 2020. It's had a little bit of work. I've just been plugging away at it ever since. So this time round I've gotten the top completely finished. I put in, it needed the birdhouse putting in, the butterflies and this bit at the top. That will have the date in eventually, but I'm not putting that in just yet because I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to finish this. I don't expect I'll get it finished this time round because there's another, this is the front, so the little pull bit actually gets covered by the flap of the needle case. So I've just made a small start on the outlining for the back, and then there's the flap which is fully stitched as well. So I doubt I'll get this finished, but I would like to quite get it to a place where I can maybe get a finish next year. So I've got till the end of the month, so we'll see how far I get with that. It may or may not happen, or it may get to the stage where I can finish the back next year and then just the flap the year after. Loving stitching on this because it's all stitched in silks. It's Splendor silks and one thread gatherer silk. Very much traditional Just Nan colours on the silks. I am quite enjoying stitching with such a crunchy silk that the Splendor and the thread gatherer is, if you know what I mean. It's not a soft silk like Vera Soie or needlepoint silk or Karen water lilies. The linen is 28 count lamb's wool, which is I'm not that keen on, but that's what came with the kit, so that's what we're using. And so yeah, so I was really pleased once I got the back stitching in on the front, and everything just popped that little bit more. So we'll see how far I get with the back, and you will see this again next time I record to see how much further I've got with it. Being on holiday this week, I should get a chunk more done, and then we will see where we are. So those are my small pieces that I worked on in April and May. And then as part of the Yorkshire Stitchers group, we do this thing called Roll the Dice. Ali rolls a 12-sided dice, and we all have 12 projects, and we pick one out a month to work on. So I'm using that as a way of getting some quality time in on 12 of my large projects. I have more than 12 large projects, so I used a random generator to pick which 12 I would work on. And my large project, if you remember, for April was Anne Kirby 1845 by Needlework Press. I bought this when it was an exclusive for the Homespun Needlework Facebook group, but it came out at market this year. Vicky released it, so I'm stitching this. I bought the kit. I'm stitching it on 40 count hog bristle by Fox and Rabbit, using the over-dyed cottons from Classic Colourworks. I can't remember exactly where I was when I showed it to you last time, because I think I just got a couple of days, so I was probably working on the house. But because in April I was off work for 2 weeks, I actually got a load done on this one. Normally what I aim to do is work on it on this Roll the Dice project, on a morning at the weekends, because evenings is usually spent working on my whip go, unless I finish my whip go goals, in which case I can pick it up in the evening, but I haven't got to that stage ever yet. But because I was off work for 2 weeks for the Easter holidays, I got loads done. When I picked it up at the start of April, I had 1 or 2 leaves on the border, and I had a couple of these red flowers done. So in April I have got about 1/4 of the border stitched completely, 2 motifs, and a good half of the house done. So I'm coming up on about a 5th, 6th of this done. I've got at least 1 page finish. If I get that house finish, that's a good chunk of in-depth stitching. So I'm really, really pleased with the progress I made on this in a month. These are the floss colours, so they're all Classic Colourworks. My floss jewellery on here, I've got a Minnie McBean's floss tag that I think I picked up at the Great British Sampler weekend on there. So yeah, those are the colours. I loved working on Anne, and I'm very much looking forward to getting back to her at some point. Hopefully, see whether she comes up for working on next year or not. We'll have to see. Which brings me to my Roll the Dice piece for this month of May. And that one was Anne Grant, 1829 by Shakespeare's Peddler. This isn't a chart one you see a lot of people working on. I'm not quite sure why. I know it's quite an old one of Teresa's. I think Anne Grant got kind of overshadowed by Anne Dale, who came up pretty soon afterwards. But I think she's a beautiful sampler. I am stitching Anne on 40 count latte from Northumbria linen from Northumbria Sampler House. And when I picked her up, I had a tiny bit of this red border stitched and just one of these border repeats the sort of olive green. So I have got whole of the olive green border in. I'm putting in the dark green. I've got a bit of border fully finished. Same with the inside border, which I'm doing as I go. As I'll be working on until the end of May, and I'm hoping I can get all the dark green on this top border and bring this one along. If I get any further, that will be great. But I'm really, really pleased with just how far I have got with her, and she's looking stunning. Now Anne is being stitched in a variety of different silks. Mostly they are the called for. Teresa calls for a couple of Belle Soie, mostly a Vera Soie. There's a couple of Glorianas in there, a couple of needlepoint ink silks, and the original called for a couple of thread gatherers. Now, when I was kitting this up, which was 2021, I couldn't get the shades of thread gatherer that I needed in the UK, so I pulled the DMC and tried to go for a couple of, and had to look to see what I'd got in my stash. And I have a large stash of Gloriana and I have a large stash of water lilies, and I pulled a couple of water lilies that I thought would go instead of the thread gatherer silks. Yeah, so this is Anne Grant, which I'm absolutely loving stitching on Anne. And I will be ashamed to have to put her down, but equally I am looking forward to June's piece for Roll the Dice as well. So I started Anne in 2022 when I was starting all the things, hence not a lot done on her. So I'm really pleased to, she's still a start, but she's a done like more of a start than she was. Which brings me to my last whip, which is Teresa Wensler's The Guardian, which I'm working on for the Year of the Dragon sale that Hugo Stitcher and Floss and Friends Canada decided to do this year. So I'm working on this one on a Sunday evening and just putting in an hour or so and once a week, but I am very, very pleased with how it's growing. So since you last saw it, I've finished these cliffs. This diagonal line here is where the dragon is going to go. I put in some more border, top and bottom, and done a lot more of the sky. And actually looking back at it from a distance on my screen, I can really see the shading on the sky, which you absolutely can't when you're working so close up to it, because it's infinitely slightly different shades of very pale blue, very pale grey and white and pale purple, and you really don't see it so much. Whereas if it's one of those, when you step back and look at a TW, they look that's when you get the real effect of the colour blending. So yeah, this is the Guardian, and it's been worked in DMC. I got this as a kit. Again, if you've been here for any length of time, you'll know I had started it, but I'd started it with the linen the fabric the wrong way round, so there wasn't going to be enough room. So I restarted on some random cream even weave from my stash. On 28, I think it's 28 count this. So very pleased with how that's looking, and quite pleased with how it's growing for only working on it an hour a week. But certainly when it was, when I picked it up, I just got a tiny bit of border and a little bit of the sky started up here. So I'm very, very pleased with just how far I've gone on with that. And that's really it. I haven't got any stash to show you. On Thursday this week, I am off to the Lake District. I am going to go to Fobbles, as I'm lucky enough to be having a class with Jeanette Douglas, which I am looking forward to immensely. So I've not been buying, because I've been saving my stash fund to spend in Fobbles, because I know I will come out with I would much rather spend stuff when I'm there and I can just see everything that Bev has in the shop. So I'm really looking forward to going to see that. So you'll get to see the sampler that we're working on and everything else when I get back and when I record at the start of the summer holidays. As far as my plans go, June and July I'm going to finish the stitching on Fruits of the Vine. That will happen regardless of what anything else does. I know my the Whip Go calls for June. I shall be working on the small from the Great British Sampler weekend, and also my Remember Me sampler by Sheepish Designs. I don't think I'll get the small finished, but if I can get it, it was a square pincushion, but if I can get several sides done, that will be great. And I would quite like to see if I could get the Sheepish Designs piece closer to the halfway mark. My Roll the Dice piece for June is Drawn Threads to Carter number 1. I think I've got about a sixth of it done so far. Again, if I could get that closer to the halfway mark, that would be really, really nice. Get over the quarter done and almost at the halfway point. That is my goal with that one, and to continue working on the Teresa Wensler, and then again we'll have to see what gets called for July. I've also got a small to do because I'm going to the Big Stitch at the end of July, and I decided to take part in the Smalls Exchange. So I need to stitch a small for that, but I am weekend after Jeanette Douglas, I'm going away for my regular sewing weekend with my friend, a lot of my friends, so at a farm in the Peak District, so I will aim to stitch that while I'm there, given I'll get a weekend's uninterrupted stitching time. Apart from that, thank you for hanging out with me. I shall see you at the end of July when we all fall headfirst into the summer holidays. Let's see how much of my brain is left by then. Thank you for please subscribe, like, leave comments, and I will hopefully get back to you very soon. See you later. Bye.